Neville Goddard, Awakened Imagination, Chapter 6, It Is Within. Rivers, mountains, cities, villages, all are human, and when you enter into their bosoms, you walk in heavens and earths. As in your own bosom you bear your heaven and earth, and all you behold. Though it appears without, it is within. In your imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. Blake Jerusalem, page 71, lines 15 to 9. In the last chapter I was mentioning before we left, the the lecture by Neville I heard at least 5 times today already, which is the Pattern Man. And in there, right in the middle, after his example of seeing the flowers in a vision, he had the understanding and epiphany and vision of the innocent. What we go through, what we are all going through, is we go from innocence to experience, then to awakened imagination, which is what we're talking about here. Okay, so God, all that is, I am right there. Here's all of us, all of our different lives, our different self-concepts, all in this brilliant blossoming, continuously happening. For the innocence, remember, you saw all the flowers moving at once. That would be all in concert, would be the innocence, because they know not what they do. They just do together, in mass. In mass, a phrase I got from the Seth material, E-N-M-A-S-S. I think there's an E there. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Innocence in a self-concept, or in reality, or in probable realities, or in self-concepts with all that is, I am in the middle of either way we want to look at that. Innocents are just doing. They're just living and doing and being. There are automatons, for lack of a better way to put it. They're not aware of this. Okay. His realization, Neville's realization was, you go from, in this life, you go from innocence. Remember, this is all about the appeasement of hunger, all of us. Continuous appeasement of hunger, life. We go from innocent to experienced, and then we go to awakened imagination. Right in the middle of that lecture, I think it's a 34-minute mark of Pattern Man. It's a video on a 100K watt YouTube channel. Highly recommend it. I'll put a link in this video. Innocence. We already know they don't sin because they don't even know better. Because they're not aware. They're not aware of making the impression. They're not aware of their desire. They're just doing. They are the innocents. They're not aware of this. If they were aware of this concept, then they would be sinning because they would be missing the mark by not making the impression. So, experienced, which is what we are, is what we're trying to become. We're trying to become awakened imagination. When your imagination is awakened, you're birthed from above to enter the kingdom of heaven, right? Must enter unto like a child. The child is full of imagination. When you're born from above, I'm changing subjects right here, but when you're born from above, there's 2 births. One is from below, one is from above. We all are born from below first. But to be born from above means you're born from here. And in the 4 mystical experiences that Neville describes, that started in 1959, is when he was born out of his skull. Okay? Awakened imagination is also either happens with this or before it. It's what we're trying to achieve as we get to understand that our experiences have brought us to a place where we understand that desire does exist within us, and that we can push the gas pedal on this to achieve our dreams, our desires, our wishes. So we go from innocence to experienced to awakened imagination. Awakened imagination is one who resurrects versus experienced and innocence restoration. So that's in that lecture. So I highly recommend it. But that's what I wanted to mention at the end of the last chapter, which was, it's been on my mind all day, and it's fascinating how Neville works. And at the end of that lecture, he also talks about his mom being blonde hair, blue eyed, and how she didn't like to go out in the sun, and she wanted to keep her coconut skin fair, her white skin fair. And when you look at that Neville video and you see the blonde guy, someone said, I think the gal that posted about it on YouTube said, that it was the second pair of people, and where the man was a blonde, and then the other guy, the video I attached to my video about Neville on YouTube dancing, he would be more of a brunette in that picture specifically. But nonetheless, that little discussion is at the end of that chapter of Neville talking about his mom, which was very cool. You get a little bit of insights there. But it's a very powerful lecture, and it has a lot to do with this. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled programming, right? Outer Limits. If you remember that, okay, dokay. Chapter 6, It Is Within, Awakened Imagination. The inner world was as real to Blake as the outer land of waking life. He looked upon his dreams and visions as the realities of the forms of nature. Blake reduced everything to the bedrock of his own consciousness. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Luke 17:21. I also mentioned that amazing, in the last chapter, the amazing out-of-body I had yesterday. And I didn't finish talking about that, but basically, I've had out-of-bodies before where I don't even remember them, but later in the day, something will flash, and then I go, oh man, I had a total full-blown out-of-body last night or this morning. I totally forgot about it. It's just like a dream. When you're in it, you know it's an out-of-body, or you know it's a lucid dream, or if it's just a dream after you practice this for a while. But sometimes I'll even forget I had an out-of-body, but they're very powerful. You know when it is one. And the one I had yesterday was so colorful. I mean, the color coming through those waves was mind-blowing. I mean, really amazing. Like I met the friend's daughter and Melody, and I forgot the name of his wife or spouse, and it was just incredible. It was incredible. Incredible. Where are we dreaming and where are we awake? The real man, the imaginative man, has invested the outer world with all of its properties. The apparent reality of the outer world, which is so hard to dissolve, is only proof of the absolute reality of the inner world of his own imagination. No man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him. I and my Father are one. John 6:44, John 10:30. The world which is described from observation is a manifestation of the mental activity of the observer. Boom. Major sentence. The world which is described from observation is a manifestation of the mental activity of the observer. When man discovers that his world is his own mental activity made visible, that no man can come unto him except he draws him, and that there is no one to change but himself, his own imaginative self, his first impulse is to reshape the world in the image of his ideal. What a sentence. But his ideal is not so easily incarnated. In that moment, when he ceases to conform to external discipline, he must impose upon himself a far more rigorous discipline, the self-discipline upon which the realization of his ideal depends. Imagination is not entirely untrammeled and free to move at all without any rules to contain it. In fact, the contrary is true. Imagination travels according to habit. Imagination has choice, but it chooses according to habit. I read a book at least 4 years ago, I think, The Power of Habit, yellow cover. I've mentioned it before. It's a good book. It's just telling you what he's telling you right here. Awake or asleep, man's imagination is constrained to follow certain definite patterns. It is this benumbing influence of habit that man must change. He just said must. If he does not, his dreams will fade under the paralysis of custom. Imagination, which is Christ in man, is not subject to the necessity to produce only that which is perfect and good. It exercises its absolute freedom from necessity by endowing the outer physical self with free will to choose to follow good or evil order or disorder. Choose this day whom ye choose this day whom ye will serve. Joshua 24:15. Very important quote at this time. But after the choice is made and accepted, so that it forms the individual's habitual consciousness, then imagination manifests its infinite power and wisdom by molding the outer sensuous world of becoming in the image of the habitual inner speech and actions of the individual. To realize his ideal, man must first change the pattern which his imagination has followed. Habitual thought is indicative of character. The way to change the outer world is to make the inner speech and action match the outer speech and action of fulfilled desire. Action of fulfilled desire. You want to match the inner speech with the outer action and inner speech of fulfilled desire. That's the fulfilled desire right there. You want to match your inner speech with that inner speech. And actions. Our ideals are waiting to be incarnated, but unless we ourselves match our inner speech and action to the speech and action of fulfilled desire, they are incapable of birth. Inner speech and action are the channels of God's action. He cannot respond to our prayer unless these paths are offered. The outer behavior of man is mechanical. It is subject to the compulsion applied to it by the behavior of the inner self, and old habits of the inner self hang on till replaced by new ones. Now listen to that. The outer behavior of man is mechanical. It is subject to the compulsion applied to it by the behavior of the inner self, and old habits of the inner self hang on till replaced by new ones. The new ones shall replace the old ones. It is a peculiar property of the second or inner man that he gives to the outer self something similar to his own reality of being. Any change in the behavior of the inner self will result in corresponding outer changes. You want to get to a place where you're consistently detaching. In my opinion, in practice of this change that you're making, you want to be feeling that like you're consistently changing. You want to have a feeling where it isn't like you feel insecure, but you want to have the feeling that change is good and it's okay to change. And even if it means like, do you remember if anybody here ice skated before? When you first ice skated? I mean, you roller skated presumably before you ice skated. I hope. Because ice skating is a tricky doozy if you haven't roller skated. Either way, when you first ice skate and you get out there and you put one foot this way and you're like, wow. And then you put that foot that way and you're like, I'm going to start moving fast. But all those movements, you didn't know. It was hard to it's hard to describe now what you expected when you first ice skated, except for just to start moving. Of course, you're going to fall sooner or later because this is brand new and balance is new with those blades on your feet. But when you first did it, it was quite a shock. It was to me. I don't know about you, but it was to me. And it was cool. What's happening here? It's like that. The second or inner man he gives to the outer self something similar to his own reality of being. Any change in the behavior of the inner self will result in corresponding outer changes. You want these changes to consistently feel like they're new. This is going to feel new to you. And it's going to feel strange not looking back. It's going to feel strange. But you got to not look back and you got to kill the old man. Let that go. Ride with the way the skates are taking you. In the direction those skates are on your feet, they're taking you this way. Then they're taking you this way. Then they're taking you this way. All these changes that start happening because you're getting good at this, you're starting to listen to your reactions, you're starting to observe your reactions, you're starting to write down your thoughts, you're starting to change your thoughts, you're starting to affirm them from here, they're starting to go in here, and they're starting to affect in here. Now they're coming out here, now they're coming out here and in here because they're mirroring that. They're changing, you're changing. Now this change happens really fast. And then over here, this change happens really fast. And then over here, this change happens really fast. You want to be, in my opinion, okay with change. Because for you to get, let's say you're here and you're a thousandaire and you want to get to be a millionaire, then you want to become a billionaire. Well, from thousandaire to millionaire, it's just another zero. Or no, it's a couple 3 zeros, right? So you get to this one, now you got the millionaire status. You must forget about this one. You must just forget about the beliefs you had here, the thoughts you had here. Everything to do with this is gone. You must dwell and be here. You must be here now. Right here is your home. You must be there. Do not disturb with this old stuff. Now, while you're here, you want to get to the billionaire status and you're doing deals and you're doing acquisitions or you're doing whatever is necessary to get you to this place. Once your toes get in there, you need to abandon this. You need to burn the ships. And by the way, while you were here, you needed to burn those ships. And hopefully you did. Because if your goal is to get to here and you know this is a stepping stone, you can't have anything to do with this. This is a ship you burned when you went ashore. Now that you went ashore and you burned that ship, you have no option but to go this way. This is your desire and your goal. This is your aim. You must think forward like this. Your inner thought must be leading you towards where you want to go and where you want to go. If you're going there, everyone's going to work with you. If your aim is true to you, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. That's not the point. If your aim is true to you is the point. If it's your desire unique to you and you can see your own path laid out before yourself, go for it. Push to the front. Samuel Orison Swett Marden, is that, who wrote that, Pushing to the Front? Is it Orison Swett Marden? I think it is. Great book. Very good books too, by the way, from the 20s, I believe. The mystic calls a change of consciousness death. By death, he means not the destruction of imagination and the state with which it was fused, but the dissolution of their union. The mystic calls a change of consciousness death. The mystic, the enlightened one. Death is, like we've just been discussing, kill the old man, death of the old self. The thousandaire became a millionaire. This self must die. This self now lives. The mystic calls a change of consciousness death. That's what we just went through. By death, he means not the destruction of imagination and the state with which it was fused, but the dissolution of their union in him. The death of this is the union you had with it. The death then gives new life, transformation, to this new life, where you fuse with this one. When you're going to go to the billionaire status, the death of this one will happen. So then you can fuse with this one. Fusion is union rather than oneness. Thus, the conditions to which that union gave being vanish. The conditions to which that union gave being vanish. I die daily. This is what I was trying to say about change. I die daily, said Paul to the Corinthians. Blake said to his friend Crabb Robinson, there's nothing like death. Death is the best thing that can happen in life, but most people die so late and take such an unmerciful time in dying. God knows their neighbors never see them rise from the dead. Wow. I can see how it could be easy to misunderstand Blake. I die daily was my point. I did not realize we were getting to that, but it is a feeling of you're okay with transformation in all fronts. Over here, over there, with this, with that. You're okay with transformation, transformation, transformation. Transformation is another word that means death. The death of one thing opens up. For one thing to finish, that means one thing's going to begin. For something to begin, something has to finish. To the outer man of sense, who knows nothing of the inner man of being, this is sheer nonsense. But Blake made the above quite clear when he wrote in the year before he died, William Blake, one who is very much delighted with being in good company, Born 28 November 1757 in London and has died several times since. Oh, I would call that a smart ass for sure. I love it. That is wonderfully brilliant right there. When man has the sense of Christ as his imagination, he sees why Christ must die and rise again from the dead to save man, why he must detach his imagination from his present state and match it to a higher concept of himself if he would rise above his present limitations and thereby save himself. What a sentence. And it makes a paragraph, and I must repeat because it's so powerful. When man has the sense of Christ as his imagination, he sees why Christ must die and rise again from the dead to save man, why he must detach his imagination from his present state and match it to a higher concept of himself if he would rise above his present limitations and thereby save himself. Thereby save himself, meaning go ahead and keep moving. Keep moving. Keep ascending. Here's a lovely story of a mystical death which was witnessed by a neighbor last week, writes the one who rose from the dead. A friend offered me her home in the mountains for Christmas holidays as she thought she might go east. She said that she would let me know this week. We had a very pleasant conversation, and I mentioned you and your teaching in connection with a discussion of Dunn's experiment with time, which she had been reading. Her letter arrived Monday. As I picked it up, I had a sudden sense of depression. However, when I read it, she said I could have the house and told me where to get the keys. Instead of being cheerful, I grew still more depressed. So much so, I decided there must have been something between the lines which I was getting intuitively. I unfolded the letter and read the first page through, and as I turned to the second page, I noticed that she had written a postscript on the back of the first sheet. It consisted of an entirely blunt and heavy-handed description of an unlovely trait in my character, which I had struggled for years to overcome, and for the past 2 years, I thought I had succeeded. Yet here it was again, described with clinical exactitude. I was stunned and desolated. I thought to myself, what is this letter trying to tell me? In the first place, she invited me to use her home as I have been seeing myself in some lovely home during the holidays. In the second place, nothing comes to me except I draw it. You see how she's using Neville's philosophy and words of wisdom and applying it into her life. She's reading and she's going through this, what is this all about? And she's also applying, nothing comes to me except I draw it. She's taking responsibility of what she's trying to interpret and understand here. And thirdly, I have been hearing nothing but good news. I have been hearing nothing but good news. We all should be so lucky. We all can and have the potential to be this creative. So let's do it. So the obvious conclusion is that something in me corresponds to this letter, and no matter what it looks like, it is good news. I reread the letter, and as I did so, I asked, what is there here for me to see? And then I saw it. It started out, after our conversation of last week, I feel I can tell you. And the rest of the page was as studded with we'res and wases as currants in a seed cake. A great feeling of elation swept over me. It was all in the past. The thing I had labored so long to correct was done. I suddenly realized that my friend was a witness to my resurrection. I whirled around the studio chanting, "It's all in the past. It's all in the past. It's done. Thank you. It is done." I gathered all my gratitude up in a big ball of light and shot it straight to you. And if you saw a flash of lightning Monday evening shortly after 6 your time, that was it. Now, instead of writing a polite letter because it is the correct thing to do, I can write giving sincere thanks for her frankness and thanking her for the loan of her house. Thank you so much for your teaching, which has made which has made my beloved imagination truly my Savior. And now, if any man shall say unto her, Lo, here is Christ, or there. She will believe it not, for she knows that the kingdom of God is within her, and that she herself must assume full responsibility for the incarnation of her ideal, and that nothing but death and resurrection will bring her to it. She has found her Savior, her beloved imagination, forever expanding in the bosom of God. There is only one reality, and that is Christ, human imagination, the inheritance and final achievement of the whole of humanity. That we, speaking the truth in love, may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ. Ephesians 4:15. What a wonderful story and wonderful chapter. Wow. To see her transformation through the letter, it's like I was just talking about revising and revision and doing that in live time, in real time. She saw the letter, saw some other aspects that she didn't expect to see, but then did a revision in herself right in the moment, and then felt free. Wow. Sincere thanks for her frankness and thanking her for the loan of her house. Thank you so much for your teaching, which has made my beloved imagination truly my Savior, which she's writing to Neville. Lo, here is Christ, or there. Wow, what a wonderful, wonderful chapter. Chapter 6, It Is Within, Awakened Imagination. We're going to see you in the next chapter.